3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon, the 1st of May, 2024. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show. He is Elijah Campbell. I am Jay Phillips. You are you, and we appreciate you choosing to spend some of your afternoon with us. Lots to get to on today's program. Our good friend Josh Kendall on the beat now for The Athletic, covering primarily the Atlanta Falcons and the NFL. Does a little college from time to time. And, of course, Josh, for many, many years, right here in Columbia and a regular on the program when he was working for the state covering the Gamecocks. And as we say a lot every time we speak with him, he definitely keeps his pulse on what's going on around the SEC. But we'll spend the bulk of our time talking the NFL offseason, his thoughts on, obviously covering the Falcons, the Michael Penix pick after the Falcons had signed Kirk Cousins to a big deal in the offseason. What he thinks of Xavier Legette going to Carolina. How winnable is this division for any of the four teams that are in it? Again, earlier in the week after the draft, Elijah and I presented all of you with what is absolute fact. One of the four teams in the NFC South, despite their record, whatever it might end up being, will be a playoff host for at least one game. That's a fact. I know there are actually some in the NFL that want to change that and go to something that's more of a seeding system within the conferences. I'd be okay with that, I guess. I don't want to veer too far off the introductory topics here, but I'd be okay with that. We won't talk about that with Josh today. That's a topic, though. I guess, like the NBA did that a few years back, right? It used to be that like the division winners in the NBA got a little better seeding, but now it's just the one through, well, I guess they have 10 teams that get to play, right?
With a certain play-in tournament attached at the end.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll touch on that. But again, it's a fact. Someone is going to win the NFC South. Someone will finish first in the NFC South.
More than likely on accident.
And that team will get a home game. I'd still say right now Tampa seems to have an edge. If I were ranking the teams of the NFC South today, I'd go Tampa, New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina. I think Carolina is the worst team in football.
I don't think it'd be a stretch for to say that it would happen again.
Yeah. How bad, how much better can they get? I don't know. Atlanta, as we talked about, picked 8th 4 straight years. Just that's a weird coincidence. New Orleans, we'll see. Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk to Josh coming up in just a bit. We will spend a good deal of time, and they are literally just coming out, but we have two different major baseball projections to get to when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Both Baseball America and D1 Baseball putting projections out today. We'll get to those for you in just a little bit. Atlanta Braves and Seattle Mariners had another great pitchers duel last night, but unfortunately the Braves falling on the wrong side of that one. The other night it was 2-1. Last night it was 3-2. So, happens. And all of a sudden, here come the Phillies, just a half game back of the Braves. Maybe I'll be okay. No, I won't. So maybe I'll be okay with the Phillies taking the lead in the division for a little while. Last year, the Braves were basically wire to wire. Not quite, I don't think, but basically wire to wire. Let Philadelphia think they're good. Make them wear the crown of the NL East for a little bit.
Well, see, as a professional hater myself, I'll use my example of my Los Angeles Laker fandom. So whenever the Clippers get really good every year, and especially when they get in the playoffs and they get a 3-1 lead, I just tell myself you can't blow a 3-1 lead and embarrass yourself if you don't get that lead to begin with. So you can tell yourself that the Phillies can't blow a big lead with the division if they don't get that big lead first.
That's a good point.
Hater 101.
That's very good.
That's how you keep yourself optimistic on another team's downfall. It is. This is stuff you have to tell yourself. You have to convince yourself.
Whatever it takes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I like it. I like it.
When the Clippers went up 31 the other day against the Mavericks, I'm like, you know what? They can't blow a colossal lead if they don't get it first. They did. They blew it, but they end up winning anyway. But now I'm just going to tell myself if they get up, 10 points tonight, can't blow a big lead and go full Clipper if you don't get out to that lead first.
We have some other news. It's breaking today as it relates, once again, to the business of college athletics. And I do understand. Listen, even I get sometimes a little wary of this kind of stuff. But when these new developments come out, it's our responsibility to let y'all know what's going on, because eventually all of these things are, as our good friend Deuce Staley would say, are going to meld nicely into a pot of gumbo that gets us back to where we all want to be. I don't know how long it's going to take, but today, the state of Florida, the state of New York, and the District of Columbia joined Tennessee and Virginia in their antitrust lawsuit against the NCAA. This is primarily tied to prohibiting recruits and portal athletes from negotiating their own NIL deals, from having schools be involved. The additions, according to this from the AP, the additions of Florida, New York, and D.C. do not come as a surprise. The Department of Justice in 4 states signed on to the lawsuit in the Northern District of West Virginia, challenging the transfer eligibility rules in January. This case just gets bigger and more difficult. And if I may, Elijah, listen, this is not a knock. I mean, look, Tennessee and Virginia are big states. But now you've got Florida and New York. And that does, I think, just alter the dynamic a bit. These aren't
Bigger
just
states.
Yes, exactly. These are, I think, state number 2 in population and number 4 in population, if I'm not mistaken, with New York and Florida. I think it's California, then Texas, or then New York, then Texas, then Florida. Don't quote me on that.
We'll fact check you. Won't quote you. We'll fact check you.
I think they're all in the top 5. Let's put it that way. Along with, I guess, Illinois. I don't know. Chicago's big, but the rest of Illinois,
Chicago's massive.
Not so much. Regardless, having the state of New York and the state of Florida, look, and D.C. to some degree. I mean, look, you would think, oh, well, D.C., but, D.C. a little bit different. But the fact that they've added their weight to it is fine. The NCAA is going to have to change. You can't. You're not going to fight this. I mean, well, maybe you are. But if you do, newsflash, you're going to lose. Because there's enough out there to tell you you're going to lose. I wouldn't fight this. I would simply, I hate to say throw my hands up, but what good's it going to do to fight? That's my question. And especially now that you have giant states getting involved.
Florida is 3, New York is 4.
Okay. So
Florida actually is bigger.
You know what?
More populous.
Well, you know why, right? I guess because all the people from New York have moved to Florida.
That's right. I'm sure there's a lot of crossover between the two.
Well, that's why they have hockey teams, plural, in Florida.
Very true.
It ain't because of Floridians.
That's why the Venn diagram has a very big middle between Florida and New York.
Yeah, so we got California, Texas, Florida, New York.
There you go.
All right.
Pennsylvania coming in 5.
That's a big state.
Rounds out the top 5. Illinois just outside, number 6. Nice try.
Here's how my brain works. Weird fact for all of you, and you can go back and fact check this one too if you'd like. I read once that if the state of Pennsylvania was mapped out the way the island of Manhattan is, that and that includes Central Park and like the other parks and things. So like mapped out like Manhattan, the entire population of Earth could live in Pennsylvania. How about that? It's kind of crazy.
If it was mapped out.
So like the way people live,
yeah.
like Manhattan, so you'd have your parks and you'd have green space, but you'd also have really tall buildings to put everybody everywhere and
with
everything else.
With a whole lot of people in them.
Yeah. But that if you could have the entire population of Earth live inside the boundaries of the state of Pennsylvania.
That is impressive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not going to get done, so it's not, just somebody figured that out. I don't know why I went
Someone
there.
did a lot of math.
Yep.
That I would never do.
I don't like math, and that takes a lot of other stuff too. So I don't want to do that.
A lot of stuff I cannot do. Not trained to do.
NBA playoffs continued last night. Knicks fans just knew they were going to win until they didn't. Maxi's shot was from about 30 feet, man.
Oh, it might have been from the state of Pennsylvania, actually. For me, it was so far away.
And then they had to hold on in overtime, though. So that's the thing. Like, you could say, oh, yeah, you hit a lucky shot. Well, you had 5 extra minutes a few seconds later. Then you had, you
had the ball down like 2 or 3 with 18 seconds left, and your best player threw the ball out of bounds.
And Tom Thibodeau didn't really inspire a lot of confidence in his postgame.
What about Tom Thibodeau inspires a lot of confidence in general?
I think he's a
personality-wise.
I think he's a decent coach. Personality-wise, not much.
He's a good coach, yeah.
He's a good coach.
He was voted as the coach that players would least likely want to play for in the athletics player poll at the end of the year by a large, large margin.
Wow.
So in terms of, I guess,
what is he, like, just a jerk?
Apparently his practices are way too hard for an 82-game season. One player, anonymous player, was quoted, paraphrasing here, said, "I'm too old for those type of practices."
Huh.
He is not very popular amongst current players. So in terms of inspiring confidence, maybe amongst players, Tom Thibodeau might not be your guy.
Will he be back next year?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Does Rockin' Jimmy Dolan go to him and tell him to tone down practice a little bit?
Oh, if they end up winning the series, if they make it out and don't blow a 3-1 lead, I think he'll say whatever you want to do.
I don't think Rockin' Jimmy even knows. Does he? You think Rockin' Jimmy knows what the record is for the Knicks right now? You think he probably knows they're in the playoffs?
Oh yeah, and so someone's probably having to tell him like, "Nope, Jimmy, you win this game, you go to the next round. You don't win the finals.
Yeah.
That's not how this works."
Yeah.
Because no one in New York, I'm sure, understands that there are more than 2 rounds of the NBA playoffs because they haven't had to experience that.
Rockin' Jimmy Dolan's probably practicing with Straight Shot
30 years
right now, or whatever. Isn't that what it is? Straight Shot. That's the name of his band.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I knew he was in a band. Couldn't tell you what the name was. So.
Somebody told me they once opened for somebody here not too long ago. I forget who now.
I thought the band name might have been Kicks Out Charles Oakley, but I think that one didn't make the...
That's a weird name. That's an album.
That was left down the cutting room floor.
That's an album. Yeah. Yeah. That's a B-side. Anyway, all right. I tell you what, Josh is coming up in a bit. We'll talk some football. We'll get into these projections. Got a few other things to get to around baseball, but on the other side of the break, according to the experts, have the South Carolina Gamecocks done enough at this point to be considered a regional host? What about the Clemson Tigers? What about a couple of other in-state schools? We'll tell you what Baseball America has to say about all of it as the postgame show continues. You know, we all need to use the bank from time to time, right? Or a lot of the time, depending on your lifestyle. But sometimes you go, wait, you're charging me for what? And then if you want to talk to somebody, where are they? Not going to happen to you if you switch your banking over to Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. Everything the big banks do, checking, savings, credit cards, car loans, mortgages, equity lines, student loans, you get it all done with lower rates and fewer fees, plus service that is right here in the Midlands. In fact, it's only here in the Midlands with Palmetto Citizens. 14 convenient branches all across the metro area, and you can always go online to apply or learn more at palmettocitizens.org. They've been doing it all across Columbia, as I said, since 1936. My wife and I are very happy customers of Palmetto Citizens. We think you will be too. So again, for any and all of your banking needs, loan needs, and so much more, stop in and see them or go online to palmettocitizens.org. Palmetto Citizens, achieve your potential. Welcome back in. Postgame show continues on this Wednesday afternoon. Don't forget that Carolina baseball comes back at you tonight, 6:45 airtime, 7 o'clock first pitch. Gamecocks against ETSU. Derek and Stewart on the call. We'll have more of a preview coming up in just a little bit. The full D1 baseball projection is not yet out for the week. I did get to watch a little bit of Kendall Rogers, Mark Etheridge, and our good friend Aaron Fitt doing their podcast today. It's kind of cool, actually. Their podcast for this, for this particular exercise is, and you really got to want to get into the nuts and bolts of how it works, right? It's them, like on their Zoom cameras, coming up with their projections. So I was watching some of that today while I was on the treadmill. And Aaron thanked me for watching. I was like, hey, here for you. So I'm just going to give you D1's top 16. So these are their hosts. All right. And obviously seeds 1 through 8 are their, super regional hosts if you go that far. So they have Texas A&M number 1.
Classic.
Yep. Arkansas 2. Clemson 3. Tennessee 4. Kentucky 5. I'll pause. They said of Kentucky what you and I have been saying about Kentucky. Kentucky's going to finish the season with, I forget the order now, but Florida, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt, right? I think that's right. So, they were there. They all three agreed, like, it could get interesting for Kentucky. Here's the thing. Kentucky's going to finish with a winning record in conference play because they've already got 16 wins. But they're 16-5. They started 11-1, so it's they're 5-4 since, and so it's they're cooling off in conference play, but it's maybe to be expected, and that's something you were pointing out yesterday. It's like, hey, when you're front loaded with ease, and
regression
you're back loaded with tougher teams. So the regression to the mean is what you pointed out the other day. But anyway, Kentucky currently is 5th. North Carolina 6, Florida State 7, East Carolina 8. So that's your top 8. I'll read it again for you. A&M, Arkansas, Clemson, Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, Florida State, East Carolina. There's your top 8 national seeds. Then we get to the second 8, starting at 9 with Oregon State. D1 has South Carolina at 10. So they don't just have South Carolina as a host, y'all. They got South Carolina comfortably as a host. And, look, if South Carolina, I think there's a pretty nice separation, though. It's almost like they were really just trying to figure out where to kind of put like 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, I think 1 through 4, they didn't even really have an issue.
The scramble is in the back half of the top 10.
Yeah. So I still think it takes a lot for any of these teams in the second 8 to maybe work their way in. But again, if Kentucky falls out of it, well, somebody's got to replace them.
And
right?
South Carolina did take 2 or 3 from them. So if it got down to a resume comparison and looking exactly at head-to-heads, like the Vanderbilt series, that's something you have in your back pocket you can use.
Again, not predicting that happens for the Gamecocks, but the D1 guys have Carolina, again, comfortably as a host at number 10. 11, Indiana State. 12, Virginia. 13, Duke. 14, Oklahoma State. 15, Santa Barbara. And 16, Oklahoma. So 2 Big 12 schools and those rivals made it in. I was thinking, you and I were talking yesterday. I was like, well, Oregon State's going to get one of these 16. And one of those Oklahoma schools is going to get one of these 16. They were really, between them, Oklahoma at 16, they had Wake Forest, NC State in consideration, West Virginia, I think also the Big 12. And again, these things are still fluid. So that's the D1 hosts. Their full projection field will be coming out in just a little bit. In the meantime, Baseball America has their latest full field projections, and their top 8 is close to what it's the same 8 schools, but a little bit of a different order. So bear with me here. Now we'll get into Baseball America. I'm not going to go through all 64, but I'm going to give you their 16, and I'll give you their regionals And I'll go ahead and just let the cat out of the bag. They have the Gamecocks hosting too, and obviously Clemson. So they have A&M at 1 and Arkansas at 2, Clemson 3, North Carolina they have at 4, Tennessee 5, FSU 6, Kentucky they have at 7, and they also have East Carolina at 8. So again, same 8 schools, a little bit of a different order. Their second 8, they've also got Oregon State at 9, but then they have Oklahoma State at 10, Virginia at 11, South Carolina at 12. So still comfortably in, just not quite as comfortable perhaps as the guys at D1. Indiana State 13. They have Irvine, not Santa Barbara, at 14.
Big West.
Duke at 15, Dallas Baptist at 16. So they feel a lot better about Oklahoma State. They don't like Oklahoma as much. And they've got Santa Barbara in that Corvallis regional. So the Clemson regional has the Tigers, obviously, as the 1 seed. They would be paired, as this projection goes, against 4 seed Jacksonville with San Diego, not San Diego State, but San Diego. What are they? They're the Toreros, right? San Diego.
I believe so.
San Diego State's the Aztecs, but I think San Diego's the Toreros.
Correct.
Troy is the 3 seed in the Clemson regional. And the Columbia regional, they've got Carolina as the 1, Samford as the 4. So there'd be your potential opening round matchup with Wake Forest and College of Charleston at 2 and 3. So
Scary.
Chad Holbrook's team is playing good baseball in their league. Wake is very good. Wake is very good.
Number 1 team to start the season.
They were, and they've just fallen off a little bit. Maybe again your regression rather to the mean. But they're a very good baseball team
with an ace pitcher that's going to be a top 10 pick in the Major League Baseball.
I think Wake Forest, with enough games left to play, again, these are very fluid. You know, there's hardly, there's a little bit that's sort of in stone right now, or at least that stonemason is like nearly finished with, like, say, Texas A&M. He's chipping away at that. Arkansas, they're good. Tennessee, but I think Wake Forest can still be a host.
For sure.
I absolutely do.
Especially if they win the ACC. And that's going to be picking up a lot of quad 1 wins if they were to end up winning that.
And that was one of the things they were talking about today, is that some of these schools still have some quad 1s that are going to get added. They talked about Carolina having Georgia and Tennessee left to play, and that'll get them up to 30 quad 1s. When I was listening to Aaron and Mark and Kendall, they were very high on South Carolina's strength of schedule and number of quad 1 games and wins. So, the Gamecocks do, as we've been talking about, the Gamecocks have a lot working in their favor. Now, of course, is the proverbial hard part. Now you got to finish the job. Mm-hmm. That's why, look, like tonight, East Tennessee comes in here with a good record. That's a good baseball team.
A winning record.
Yeah. A very solid record. That's good. Again, they're a good baseball team. The 2 pitchers going against each other tonight have very high ERAs, so I don't know what that means. That'll mean a 2-1 game.
We're not going to have a Max Fried versus Bryce Miller type.
I guess not. And then again, this weekend, it's not a must-win series in the most definitive or literal sense, but I've been calling it's a you better win series. Yeah.
Beyond the expectation of winning, you have to get this win.
It's just you lose, because I think Missouri's RPI this week is like in the 90s.
Yeah, it's bad. It's very low.
Yeah, and that could really hurt. Your RPI, if you're South Carolina, unfortunately, and this is just how the world works, your RPI may take a little pop regardless. Certainly if you lose, it's even worse.
By virtue of playing number 91 Missouri.
Yeah. That's just how the math works. Now, the good news is that next week and then the week after, you go back to playing teams that are, Tennessee is, top 5 RPI, right?
Yeah, Tennessee is number 5 RPI.
Yeah, and Georgia 9th?
Georgia is 9th.
Yeah.
Good memory.
So
you don't even need the computer in front of you.
You go back to, I've been looking at it all week, so after a while it just
soaks in.
Yeah, just seared onto my brain. So, for Carolina baseball fans, feel good. I know there's nervousness. Again, the job is not done as of yet, but as we speak, this baseball team has, according to the expert projections, done more than enough to be a host. Now you, again, have to go finish the job. We'll come back around and talk about more of this from an SEC perspective, especially throughout the course of the afternoon. Come back on the other side, though. We'll switch gears back to the National Football League. The draft is done. The offseason begins. What were the Falcons thinking? Who's going to win the NFC South? All that and more with our good friend Josh Kendall of The Athletic. He'll be with us when the postgame show continues. Talk a little football here. Apologies before we get anything else. During the commercial break, Josh, very apologetic, had to push back. And he's got some things on the beat that he needed to cover immediately. And we are working on rescheduling him, hopefully within the next little bit, if not very, very soon. And I know Josh well, so I know that he did not like having to send that text about 1 minute before he was coming on the air.
Falcons probably signing another quarterback. He's got to get ready. He's got to get ready to break that news. He probably got a text saying, hey, they're bringing in Zach Wilson. They're trading Zach Wilson.
Steve Bartkowski just walked through the door.
Plans have changed. They're adding another QB.
But we'll get Josh as quickly as possible. That, however, just allows us to tell you that there is further breaking news around Gamecock football. This is something Josh would have been reporting on, back when he was on the beat. According to our friends at Gamecock Central and at On 3, this is from Andrew Graham, actually. South Carolina has gotten a commitment today from Nevada wide receiver Dale Von Campbell. He was the Wolfpack's leading receiver last season. Started 9 games, played in all 12. At least he was their receiving yardage leader at 594 on 31 receptions. He is originally from Texas. He began his career at Illinois, transferred to Nevada, and will now be coming to South Carolina. He's the big guy they wanted, Elijah, 6'4", 218 pounds. So, again, they wanted a jump ball guy that could body up. And at 6'4", 218, you've got a jump ball guy that can body up.
And a deep threat. I think my biggest critique of this roster offensively was that they didn't have a guy that I would feel 100% comfortable with stretching another team's defense or having them respect you deeper down the field. And this is the type of guy you want because you know what his average depth of target was? 19.9 yards.
Okay.
On average, the passes being thrown to him traveled 20 yards in the air.
Yeah.
I'd say that's a deep threat target.
That's big. It's, look, let's see how his game translates. Again, he started in the Big Ten at a school that's not really known for, at least for right now, throwing the football that much.
What, Illinois?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they don't do that often. Juice Williams ain't walking through that door.
And again, 31 catches last year in 12 games, so not a big average, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you, Nevada does so and so. Like, I know that Illinois doesn't like to run the ball, or that they do like to run the ball a lot, and that Brett Bielema is a little bit allergic to throwing the football.
I don't think Brett Bielema knows what the forward pass is.
Yeah, I don't know. He probably does, but it's like that thing that other teams do.
Or it's like one of those things, it's like, hey, have you heard about the forward pass? Yeah, I've heard about it. I haven't read up on it yet. I got a couple articles bookmarked. I'll get to it eventually. Yeah. I'll read it this summer.
So anyway, again, is this a good pickup? It checks the box that we know Coach Beamer and Coach Loggins were looking for, and Coach Furry, obviously, now that he's in that position too. Ask me again in October.
Yeah, we'll see.
Best I can tell you. He's going to have to learn pretty quickly what it is that they're doing. But that's the pitfall of the spring portal is you've got a void to fill, but you know that you won't really get to work with that person until August. They'll be they can do some things individually. They'll get to know each other. He'll be here in Columbia, as soon as the semester ends and before we go to summer school and do a little bit. But I don't know. But again, 6'4", 218.
Fills a void.
Yeah.
It fills the void because, look, I love the receivers they got. I love Gage Larvidan because he does line up in the slot and out wide, but maybe doesn't have that same depth of target or maybe that same ability to make defenses completely respect the downfield passing game. Jared Brown, definitely, slot receiver, but was a successful slot receiver at Coastal Carolina. A couple other guys, maybe some small sample size alerts like an Amari Huggins-Bruce, but this is a guy that, he got 57 targets last year. So, they might not have thrown the ball a lot, but they did throw it to him. And I know Nevada's quarterback play hadn't been fantastic in the last few years. So there could be a lot of variables as to why maybe he didn't have as, a great completion percentage to him. He didn't get credited with a ton of drops, though. In 57 targets, he was only tallied for 2 drops
on
the season.
That's good.
So I think you could maybe pin a lot of the statistical question marks, if there are question marks per se, maybe due to shaky quarterback play. But look, at the very end of the year, I mean, he had 2 straight games of at least 8 targets. Against Hawaii at home, he had 9, and then at Utah State, he had 8. So they clearly, weren't a dynamic passing game, but they looked to him a lot. He was a guy they definitely leaned on, and it was good enough to get him honorable mention All Mountain West. I think that was the I guess award he got at the end of the year. But he got recognized, and there's clearly a value of what he can do to maybe take the top off of a defense. That's what you need probably the most offensively, because a lot of other, I guess, roles on your offense have been addressed in the last 5 months.
My blanket, wasn't there a few years ago, wasn't there a pretty good quarterback out of Nevada?
Colin Kaepernick was about 15 years ago.
Is that who that's who I'm thinking?
It might be.
Yeah, it probably is.
He's the last one I can think of.
Okay.
They had one dude that was like 6'8" a few years ago.
No, it's Kaepernick. Kaepernick's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I just couldn't, I wouldn't, because I was like, I know it wasn't Jordan Love. He's
Utah State. Different Mountain West.
Right. Yeah. Anyway. All right. So there you go. So
Wolfpack.
Again, Delvon Campbell coming in. And yesterday, if you didn't hear, Carolina got another wide receiver commitment. Vandrevius Jacobs from Florida State, 6 foot, 175 pounds. He is from Florida. Was pretty good out of high school, a 3-star. Just really didn't catch on at FSU for whatever reasons. Again, where these guys fit right now in what's a very fluid room.
A crowded room.
Yeah. Just remains to be seen. I don't know. You want to believe that these guys will help, that they've, got something that they like. And I want to be, what am I trying to say here? There's a reason they're in the portal right now. Now, for some of these guys, like for instance, the Jacobs kid at FSU, I want to go somewhere where maybe I'm going to play a little bit more. Because I think he only had 3 catches last year, and he only played in 3 games. But he's got a lot of eligibility left. Whereas Campbell is maybe looking to step it up a notch. He's got some size, as you said. There seems to be some pretty good ability there from a statistical standpoint in terms of catching the football when it's thrown to him. I'm going to go try one more shot here at a higher level of football. So, again, ask me in October. That's the best I can say.
It'll take a couple weeks for them to assimilate into some of these roles too. I mean, look, I don't think anybody thought Xavier Legette would be the guy that you throw most of your passes to and give most of the targets to. But after the first game against North Carolina, you're like, wait a minute, we're not getting Juice Wells back. This guy's pretty damn good by himself.
Yeah.
And then he ultimately blossomed into that. That's something we did not foresee at all coming into the season last year. Not saying any of these dudes are going to be Xavier Legette, but I think our perception of what the roles in this offense now are going to be a whole lot different by the time, the Kentucky game rolls around, which is going to be, game number 2 of the year after you see him play against Old Dominion. You might not even see that much of a hand against Old Dominion. With the target shares might be a lot different from that game to week 2. And then who knows, by the time we get to the middle of the season, the target share is going to look the total opposite of what we might thought at this point in time right now.
Yeah. And we asked this of Mike Uva yesterday, like how much more do we really know about this team? And what did he say? Like, well, we know a little more about where they are, but
we know a little more. The bar was pretty low on that because we didn't know a ton.
And I look, obviously the coaching staff knows more than we do, and it's not like Shane or any of his assistants have been sandbagging us or anything like that. But I say this, ask this. In a good way, like how much do they really know right now?
Yeah.
I mean, they get paid to do this, and they've got the film, and they were at practice, and blah blah blah, but they hadn't played a game yet.
No, I think really the only unit on this team that you can project pretty well is the defensive line and maybe your secondary, right? Because you have a lot of returners. That's where the most of your returners are. You rated the transfer portal the best on the offensive side of the ball, completely replenished your running back room, completely replenished the wide receiver room, and then you added, some names to the quarterback room to maybe give some healthy competition going into next season. Really, the only thing you know about this Gamecock team is that they're going to have a solid defensive line and probably an improved secondary.
Yeah.
From what we've been told and from what we saw in the spring game, you can bank on a more improved secondary, and based off the last 3 games of the regular season this past year, and just the fact that you're getting all those guys minus Dial back, I think the only thing you really know is that the D-line will be solid, secondary will be improved. That's why this summer, when, Gamecock fans, you're not just listening to us, but maybe other national media outlets, and they're projecting, SEC standings. I'm warning you right now, you're not going to be ranked very high, and hardly any of them, because there are so many unknowns. That's kind of where you're at right now. And that's not a bad thing, because surprise teams happen all the time. But there's so much unknown on the offense that it's going to be a not fun projection season, I guess, for this team.
3 running backs in the portal. Now 5 wide receivers in the portal.
Almost an entire room's worth.
A tight end in the portal.
Mm-hmm. Offensive lineman.
2 quarterbacks in the portal.
Mm-hmm. Your offensive line depth that you have was mostly portal acquired.
Yeah. There's still a lot of hi, my name is.
Wearing name tags.
Yeah. But I know they feel confident that what they did was an improvement from a talent perspective over what they had. So
it's just not proven. Yeah.
Right.
And it's going to take playing actual football games to be able to do that.
Which is, again, and I won't bang the drum, but this is why I'd love to see them play a game.
Would have been nice.
Just to see. That's all.
Would be nice.
Just to see. Speaking of playing games, might the National Football League be closer to playing another real game? We'll give you some details as the postgame show continues. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Wednesday afternoon. Happy May Day. Who celebrates that? Russia, Eastern European countries celebrate May Day for something? Am I right about that?
Not 100% sure. I'm usually pretty well versed in history, but can't tell you for sure.
It's not really history as much as it's just like celebrations. And here in
Cultural
America, we look for so many reasons to celebrate other people's stuff.
I'll celebrate anything.
Well, St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo's this weekend.
Yeah, that's true. On a Sunday.
Yeah. Which is not, I just want everybody to know, not Mexican Independence Day.
They are two different things. Yes.
Yeah. It is the celebration of a victory in war. It's just not their independence.
Two different days.
They were already free. In fact, it was somebody trying to take them over again.
So it's not quite Battle of New Orleans. You already had things settled.
Right.
Fought. But
just the treaty was on a boat.
Still, one of my all-time favorite history stories is like one of the most famous battles in American history didn't matter, right? It's like having a quadruple overtime game in the regular season to maybe clinch a playoff spot, but it turns out a team already won, so this game didn't matter at all.
Right.
But before we could just, look at a score on a phone.
Sure.
Or get news on a phone.
Yeah, they had to put it on a boat.
And it was only a couple months behind.
Right.
And by then, a lot of other people died for no reason.
Yeah. Well, there's our history lesson for the day.
There it is.
Anyway, happy May after that.
The lesson is sometimes we do things that just don't matter at all.
Tonight, the Gamecocks back on the diamond. Go to 1075thegame.com. Register. You have to register to win. Register for the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. Every game, Palmetto Citizens adds $25 to the pot. And if a Gamecock hitter hits a Grand Slam, you could win all of that cash. Right now, it's at $1,075. But again, if I'm not mistaken, tonight that will be actually at $1,100.
That's correct.
Which is even more.
That's a lot of money.
Than the 1075, which it would have been great if this had happened on Sunday and somebody had won $1,075.
That would be on a show that
we would have made that a thing like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, absolutely. We'd have run that up.
Yep. But unfortunately for us and fortunately for you, there's more money in it now. So log on to 1075thegame.com and register for the Palmetto Citizens Grand Slam giveaway. This weekend, Roger Goodell was on the Pat McAfee show and was yucking it up with the guys, which, they're wont to do with their guests and whatnot. And through the course of the interview, he didn't necessarily predict this. I do think some of the way that what he said about 18 games has been I've watched it now, and he didn't say, oh, we're going to 18. What he said was, I think we're good at 17 now, but listen, we're looking at how we continue. I'm not a fan of the preseason. The reality is I'd rather replace a preseason game with a regular season game any day. That's just picking quality. If we get to 18-2, that's not an unreasonable thing. So there was no, this is what we're going to do, or I'm predicting we will. He threw out, we're good right now, and if we do this. So, people have said, Goodell says, listen, you don't do it by accident either.
Right. He knows what he's doing when he says something like that.
But I wouldn't say this is some type of floating of a trial balloon. We already have been talking about this. 17's a weird number. He also made mention of the fact that we might see the NFL season extend just a little to where the Super Bowl would be on President's Day weekend and give most people Monday off to recuperate. Have there been studies, by the way, that have shown the production levels of the American labor force on the day after the Super Bowl?
If they have, I can almost promise you it is significantly lower than your average Monday. Monday would be the lowest of all of them, obviously.
There's been a couple of times, because I've been doing this a while now, so I will admit, there's been a couple of times when I probably shouldn't have had as many beers as I did at a Super Bowl party.
Right. We've all been there.
But quite honestly, it's been a while, man, for that reason.
Because you realized, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
I made a mistake.
And I hate, I don't know. I can't think of the last time where I was just like hung over because I just can't drink that much anymore.
Right.
But I do remember in my youth a couple of times when I was working across the street.
The Monday after the Super Bowl wasn't a lot of fun for you.
Man. But there was this sweet lady named Miss Hattie at one of the canteens at the State House, actually in the Gresset building. And she made the best vegetable soup and cornbread. And hit the spot a couple times.
Needed it.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Thanks, Forrest Gump.
Hour 2. We'll hope to get Josh Kendall for you soon. We'll talk more about the baseball projections. Be right back. I love telling you about our good friends at Cato's Power Equipment. Is your yard looking a little uninviting right now? Are you kind of embarrassed about it? Or more importantly, maybe your significant other is like, do something about the daggum yard. It's that time of year, pollen, the weeds, all kind of get together. The Midlands, a little extra heat will get there for you. And you're like, man, I got to do something about this. Well, whether you cut your own yard or you do it for a living, Cato's Power Equipment is here to help you find your new favorite lawnmower. And right now, Toro is offering savings of up to $1,500 on their commercial equipment, like the Toro Z Masters and Grandstands, with special pricing on the big 36-inch Grandstand model, plus $200 to $500 off the always popular Toro Time Cutters and Titans. Any yard, any budget, Cato's Power Equipment has the sales, service, and advice to make the yard look fantastic. Check them out, 4012 West Beltline Boulevard, and always online at catospowerequipment.com. 4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Second hour of the postgame show. Call it out.
Wow. It's been a while, too.
Second hour of the postgame show. It will never leave me entirely. You know, I mean, again, 16 years. Every so often it happens. Second hour of the post-game show coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia. He is Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you for being with us. Get into a couple of college football things. Before we do, we'll tell you again, if you have not yet heard, Gamecock fans, South Carolina getting a commitment today from Nevada wide receiver Delvon Campbell, originally from Texas, started his college career at Illinois, then moved out to Nevada. He is 6'4", 218 pounds, led the Wolfpack in receiving yards last year at just under 600 on 31 catches. And again, 6'4", 218, as I said, he is the jump ball, big body receiver that the South Carolina coaching staff said they wanted and would do all they could to get. You know, you got to wonder sometimes, too, Elijah, just how many of you are out there. Yeah, probably not a lot, you know, and you got 2 receivers this week. That's 5 receivers in the portal since the end of the regular season, plus a tight end, plus 3 running backs, plus 2 quarterbacks. So you have really reworked what your offensive roster looks like.
Yeah, it's going to look a whole lot different, but not just by roster-wise, too. I mean, think about it. The play is going to be significantly different, too. What did we see with Spencer Rattler? You're trying to utilize his skill set. He throws the ball downfield really well. He can throw it all over the field really well. You've got a more mobile backfield at quarterback now, receivers who before, obviously, today didn't have a ton of deep threats. I don't want to say they're going to go full West Coast, Bill Walsh-style West Coast offense, but
that'd be fun.
That would be fun, but I think you'll see something maybe similar to it. It's going the play style will be different, and that's going to be the biggest question mark for this team going into the year is, what's the offense going to look like? It's going to look a whole lot different. Given the health of the offensive line, we'll learn how much better it gets. Teams get different all the time, but do teams get better? I think that's always the question, that needs to be asked, and we'll see. That one is a legitimate question mark.
And I'm on a lot of this. I've been saying, and y'all are going to hear me use this refrain a lot over the next few months, but ask me in October. Yeah, that's when people ask me on air, off air, ask me in October. I give that answer. I think a team is loaded and ready to go. Look, I think when you think back to last season, the one thing that none of us foresaw was just the amount of serious injury up front to what was already a relatively inexperienced offensive line. And then asking guys, in some cases with no experience, to come in and start and then shift positions.
Not just start, but then play positions you've never had to play.
Yeah, it's just asking so much. You don't want to say that 5-7 record was a throwaway. I thought they finished as strongly as they could.
Yeah.
That November was good. I mean, and even when you think about the Clemson game, Clemson didn't score an offensive touchdown. It's crazy.
You were in the game.
And think about the touchdown Clemson did score. Like, that shouldn't have happened.
No. Well, think about that game that you had at the very end of the year and then ask yourself, is that defensive performance or a game like that being played at the end of the year anything you could possibly conjure up in your mind after you went 0 for October, including a loss against Florida in which the reason you lost was because you could not stop Graham bleeping Mertz from marching up and down the field on you?
Yeah.
That shows at least defensively the leaps that this team took. And again, we mentioned it a little bit in the last hour, but what do we know about this team? What do we actually know? It's that your defensive line's pretty good, and your secondary's improved, and those are positives.
And I think you have some actual depth at linebacker.
And edge rusher, And I think you actually have a talent upgrade at edge rusher, and I think Dylan Stewart will be playing right away.
Yeah, the new D-Stu. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
He's good.
Yeah, I think so.
Had a good spring game.
So there you go. Again, Delvon Campbell coming in from Nevada, joining. Right.
At least not that I know of.
You should find that out.
I'll ask him.
You should find that out.
Should get him on the show.
And that pairs up with Vandrevius Jacobs of Florida State committing to South Carolina yesterday. He's a 6', 175-pounder with lots of time left on his collegiate eligibility clock. One of the things, I'm going to shift gears, stay with college football here, that's been coming up of late is the postseason, obviously, and we do know we have a new format that starts this season with the college football playoff. We already know that they want to expand again. In fact, there were recently meetings on the longer-term future of the college football playoff that were held in Dallas. And then subsequently, those meetings also allowed for some of these preliminary discussions to take place about settling this House versus NCAA lawsuit. But one of the things that came up last week, I think, sort of indirectly, was the notion of a playoff for the group of five. And I know, for instance, Josh Pate of CBS Sports, who does his podcast a couple of times a week, got a lot of pushback. It's a popular podcast, and it's good. And I think he does a nice job of really talking to a lot of folks who know college football. And he got a lot of pushback when he said, "Hey, it'd be really cool if there was a group of five playoff." He didn't. Yeah, I saw what he said, and I never took it as a negative. But in a subsequent show, he was like, "Man, some of y'all just really," I'm paraphrasing now, like, "some of y'all G5 fans really just don't like me at all." And here's what I'm trying to tell you. And I told Elijah this morning, one of the things Josh said was, right now, sure, you're on a nice road. You're on an 8-lane highway, and you're going to go off a cliff. I'm trying to tell you that I can get you on a nice 4-lane highway that leads to somewhere you might want to be, which is with a championship.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see now, and I'm coupling this with some things that are new, because one of the things that's being talked about in the House versus NCAA settlement is this notion that Governor Baker brought up a few months ago, and that is probably going to be there. There's going to be, a lot of people believe, a number. It won't be a percentage, because I don't think that's going to be as, dare I say, fair. But there's going to be a number, probably around $20 million a year, that the biggest schools will basically be using to fund NIL or just paying your players. Mm-hmm. We may not even call it NIL anymore.
Just call your salary.
Or bonuses. Hell, I don't care what you call it. Now, for Ohio State and Texas and Florida and UCLA, that might be more manageable than for, say, Mississippi State or Iowa State or Colorado. They're all in the Power 4 now, but Mississippi State takes in about $100 million a year. So does Colorado. So does Iowa State. South Carolina takes in about $150. So does Arkansas. Tennessee takes in a little bit more. Clemson also takes in about what Carolina takes in. They might have a little bit more in football revenue these days. But it's not a drastic gap between, like, Carolina and Clemson here in state. Ohio State takes in like $250, and so does Texas.
Yeah, Ohio State, I believe,
is the
richest.
Yeah. And Texas is right behind them. So anyway, I say all that to say there's not going to be a way for the vast majority of Group of Five schools to come up with $20 million to set aside just for the purpose of paying their players. I can look, you and I were talking this morning. I can look at Memphis and say, you can afford it.
Especially after FedEx gave them all the money they did.
Tulsa probably could get enough backers in Oklahoma with money to support it. Maybe
Houston.
Well, they're in the
Big 10.
They're in the Big 12 now. Yeah, they're good. But even say San Diego State.
Boise State, maybe?
Boise, they're probably on that cusp. Even like East Carolina, which has a passionate fan base and a big fan. It's a big school, but do they have $20 million a year? Like, I don't know, and I'm not saying it's going to be 20 for sure. But anyway, to come back around to it, like, what is wrong with the notion of a G5 championship? Let's just go ahead and do what we did years ago with, Division 1A and AA, now FBS, FCS. And just create that. I get it, and you made a good point, and I've heard Josh and others say this too, Josh Pate. Like, no, we want to be in the playoff. Okay. But you're not going to win it.
No.
And it's not going to have the same kind of cachet when, like when UMBC beat UVA. or who beat
Fairleigh Dickinson.
Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue. It's just not going to be the same.
The likelihood is significantly different in football than it is in basketball.
Or even like a Virginia Commonwealth making the Final Four.
Yeah.
We talked about Brad Stevens yesterday.
Butler going to 2 straight championship games.
And you may say, well, what about Gonzaga? All right. Well, I mean, I don't know. Does Liberty or James Madison have the opportunity? It's not the same in basketball. It's just not the same. You need a couple of good players, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. You might have to pay your coach a lot of money in basketball, Mark Few.
Yep.
But you're not spending the money it takes to be successful like you need to in football. So I just, what's wrong with the notion of a G5 playoff?
Yeah. I think the only thing is that they feel like they're being gypped out of money. Because here's the thing, too, from a competitor standpoint, there's nothing, I think, if you're a G5 school, you'd love more than a chance to play for your own national championship. Because, look, I've covered college football at the group of 5 level. And some fan bases are passionate. They're very online, but they're not very in person, if that makes sense, right? I mean, I covered a Conference USA football championship game, a conference championship game when nothing else was going on in the Middle Tennessee area, and that includes Nashville. The Predators weren't playing that day.
Right.
The Titans weren't going to be in town that weekend, and the stadium might have been 25% full.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest game you've played for. That's the only time in the history of that campus that a championship game was being played in that stadium. Because, look, they win the game. All right, cool. How many of them are going to watch the New Orleans Bowl? Because that's ultimately what your season ends in. It's cool to get those bowl games. And trust me, when Middle Tennessee State makes a bowl game, I'm going to watch.
Yeah,
I'll watch.
Sure.
But you know what? I'm guaranteeing myself watching if they have a chance to play for a championship, right? Like a group of 5 title game, would absolutely tune in for. Would be a dream to see them in a college football playoff, but you might get that once every 20 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. And that's if you're lucky, right? There's a good chance you could have a group of 5 playoff format with 5 auto bids, 3 at-larges. 8-team playoff would be so much fun to watch. You would get really good football games. You'd get competitive football games, and you can claim national championships. Like, look, you could be a school like Liberty or what UCF used to be before they ended up getting into the Big 12.
What Coastal wants to be. Again, East Carolina, James Madison. I mean, all the MAC schools.
It gives Coastal Carolina a chance to play for a national championship, right?
Right.
Like, honestly, who cares if it's a distinguishable between, the Power 4 championship and the Group of 5 championship. You know what Marshall still has at their stadium? National championship banners from when they're at the FCS. They're not ashamed of those. They're not taking them down. You can add more of that. There's something more to play for.
Appalachian State loves theirs. Georgia Southern loves theirs.
And there's over like 70%. 70% is probably even just an underestimate of the sport that have no true postseason aspirations to play for. The bowl games, fine. They're fun, whatever. And if my alma mater's in one, I'll watch. But it's a whole lot different when you have a championship to play for. Because when you talk about like the FBS championship, it's only obtainable for a small handful of teams. There's nothing wrong with being able to do this. And also, you're probably going to be able to make some money. That's the thing, too. You're not getting completely gypped out of this, and more schools will be able to share more money. Because just looking at it right now, according to sportsmediawatch.com, the Rice Texas State First Responder Bowl on December 26th peaked at 2.8 million viewers. That's a meaningless bowl game.
Yeah, that's not bad.
For Rice in Texas State.
You got a captive audience, but it's not bad.
If they're playing for a semifinal, you're going to quadruple that number. You're going to get decent ratings if there's actually something to play for other than the First Responder Bowl championship.
Right.
It can be a ratings hit. And I think it's something that's worth experimenting with.
I would like them to talk about it. And again, Disney or Fox or somebody will throw some money at you and see what happens. But I don't think it's one that says you're diminished. Yeah,
No.
I get it, but there are just realities that must be dealt with. And as we head towards this new reality, how many of those schools can set them aside? Now, look, if we can find a way to get Memphis and Tulsa and East Carolina and a few others into the so-called P4, okay.
Cool, yeah.
Okay. Then let
this be the springboard to get them in.
Yeah. Coming back, we'll talk more about the latest projections for the NCAA baseball tournament. This is the Postgame Show. Welcome back into the post-game show. I have to say it right since I opened the hour by referring to my old show.
You had a show relapse.
Sorry. Apologies. I feel bad for you more than, like, anything for me.
Oh, man, dude, last week.
Because you're like, dude, you haven't, like, you don't know me as someone who ever did the halftime show.
Only for a handful of months. Like 2 maybe.
Yeah, I guess it's true. I mean, I've been doing this one now since August. When did you get here?
I started as a part-timer in late July.
Yeah.
And then became full-time in October.
So just literally weeks.
Yeah, just a handful of weeks.
Yeah.
So
Plus I was gone for some of that.
True.
So really, it's very small.
True.
But anyway, so my apologies. Primarily to you.
Last week.
And to the audience.
Last week, I did accidentally call this the afternoon show whenever I...
See, I haven't done that.
I have. And I immediately... I did refer to myself as pulling a Jay Phillips. That is how I referred to the incident.
Thanks.
Figured you get a kick out of that.
I get something out of that. Yeah, I don't know. Do I laugh? Do I get insulted? Like, that old man forgets everything.
I forgot where I was at, just like Jay.
Yeah, I don't even know my kids. I did see, apropos of nothing, that today is the 35th anniversary of Disney's Hollywood Studios, which was originally called like Disney MGM Studios, but now it's Disney's Hollywood Studios. Have you been to Disney's Hollywood Studios? It's down in Florida. It's one of the 4.
Yeah, I think I've been.
Tower of Terror, Aerosmith.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love Tower of Terror.
Yeah.
Not great for my cardiovascular health, but I like it.
Oh, I disagree. I think it is. I think it makes you feel very much alive. I love that ride. That's my favorite ride at Disney. That's why I brought this up. Like,
terrified as a kid. Absolutely terrified.
So I have a funny story that I've never told you before, and I like to share this from time to time, and I wish he were able to hear. So, again, Michael Haney and I, many of you remember Michael. We did well over 2,000 shows together, both here and at our old show. I still feel very close to him. We talked just a few days ago. He's great. He lives in Nashville now, of course, and is in the music business. So we were covering the Carolina-Wisconsin Citrus Bowl, and we stayed in one of the hotels on property.
Oh, nice.
And we were able to do our shows back then. They had an ESPN, like, restaurant, like a sports bar, ESPN Club, I think they called it, or ESPN Zone. I forget what the name was. But it was pretty cool. It was on the Disney boardwalk right near the back entrance to Epcot.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they had they truly had a like 3-person radio booth in the restaurant. Like you were like in a fishbowl. It was great. And all you had to do, and they let us use it for free. All you had to do, they had a plaque, man. They didn't have like a sign like printed. They had a plaque like in metal stamped. That said, just please say this when you come back from your breaks. And it was like, we are coming to you live from the ESPN zone at Disney's Boardwalk. That was it.
Easy. That's an easy deal.
Right.
Very easy deal.
So Michael and I were doing our show from that studio in the ESPN Club or zone. I really do need to know which one it was. I forget. Heath was doing his show at the Hollywood Studios. They also had a radio studio there, and since it was easier for him to prep, and he knew somebody that worked over there, he was able to do his show there. Well, so that guy that he knew came to get Michael and me after we were done one afternoon, and we went around and got in from the cast member entrance. We went to see Heath for a minute and saw where he was doing his show, and the guy gave us a tour of a couple of facilities real quick, and so now it's like 5 o'clock on like a Thursday or Friday before the bowl game, whatever day it was, like a couple days before the bowl. And the guy was like, well, y'all are in now, so, do whatever you want. And so my wife had not yet gotten there. Michael's girlfriend had gotten there. And so I was like, all right, well, we got to go ride Tower of Terror. So we got because I love that ride, right? And I was like, you ever done it? You know, I'm all you know, and I'm 10 years older than Michael, and I'm ready to go. And I was like, you ever done this? He goes, yeah, I did this one. That's like they got the guys in the suits, and it's like a dark room, right? And yeah, I did it with my nephews a few years back. I was like, cool, good. So we wait in line and we go through all the story and whatnot, and we get on to the ride portion. And obviously, then, and those of you who don't know, it is 100% dark. And then you don't just drop, you are literally pulled faster than gravity. And then you rise back up, and then it does it again. And it randomizes. So you don't know exactly how many times you're going up and back. Michael has no idea what we're doing. He thinks we're on Haunted. He thinks we're in line for Haunted Mansion at Magic Kingdom.
No. Completely different. Absolutely
which
not.
goes like 2 miles an hour, and it's for little kids. That's what he says. He's like, yeah, I did it with my nephews. And I thought to myself first, I was like, dude, your nephews are kind of young. Like at that point, I think his nephews were like maybe 10.
You're a little young to be an adrenaline junkie. Yeah.
And I was like, if it was a few years ago, like your nephews must have been like right on the cusp of where you can ride Tower of Terror.
God.
And he's screaming, and he's like angry and screaming and everything at me. And I'm like, dude, you said you'd done it. And he goes, this isn't the one with the ghosts or whatever, because it did. Because he even said that, because there is one scene where they have some ghosts on the Tower of Terror ride. Yeah. And so that's what. So he thinks the whole time that we're in line for Haunted Mansion, and
it ain't that.
Needless to say, no, it is not. He got over it, but he had never been on it, and he was not prepared for it. And and again,
that's a hell of a switch up.
I can't say that I felt
switch up
bad, because I mean I asked.
You did. You know, you got to be prepared. You got to know what you're doing.
And I just figured once I've asked, he's like, because if if the answer is yes, then I don't need to tell you what the ride entails,
because you believe he's already been on it.
Yeah.
But if he said, I don't know.
Yeah,
then you maybe have a little bit of an obligation
if I say
to
which
describe it a little bit.
If he had said, which one is it? I'm like, it's the one that, like, you drop, 12 stories in about 2 seconds. Like, have you done that? Like, I think you'd remember.
It's the world's fastest elevator, yes. Well known.
But I do love that park. The Aerosmith ride, now the Star Wars stuff, and the Toy Story ride and everything else. It's a fun park.
Is it not the Aerosmith ride anymore?
It is.
Okay.
I hope there's a younger generation that still knows who the heck Aerosmith is, and it's the same like little pre-ride movie that they've had for 20 years at least.
Never change it. That's a good ride.
Oh, it's a great ride, but
all-timer.
But they may need. I got a hunch that soon enough here, that ride shuts down for a few months and gets rethemed. Whether it remains a rock and roll band, or if they could turn it into some other movie franchise with the same. Again, you're not going to stop the ride. The ride's great.
That must be Taylor Swift's ride, probably.
No. She does have a deal with Disney, though.
I'm calling my shot now. May 1st, 2024.
But I'll always have that spot in my head and heart for Michael Haney fooling himself into believing he had done Tower of Terror. Or again, it's not the opposite, because it is dark and kind of gloomy in terms of its theming on purpose, obviously.
Ominous theming, yes.
But it is not a 2 mile an hour dark ride through kooky ghosts and weird music.
That's not one to take a 10-year-old on.
Not the same. Not the same. But, yeah, so happy birthday to Disney's Hollywood Studios. And if you haven't been in a while, you should go. It's fun. And if you have been in a while, then you already know, and you should go again.
It's only been like 12 years since I've been. So
you should go again. You haven't done the Star Wars stuff yet. Let me tell you, those 2 rides are on point, man.
Never been as an adult.
You should go.
But I'd love to.
You need to. You owe it to yourself. It's a lot of fun.
I do.
All right, we'll get those baseball projections for you. Where are the Gamecocks and the Tigers with about a month to go in the season? We'll let you know what Baseball America and D1 Baseball had to say as the post-game show continues.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The couple of accidents to get to you that are causing some delays on the roadways this afternoon here downtown. An accident on Huge East Street near Blossom Street is causing traffic to move pretty slowly. Keeping it in Richland County, here we have another one on I-20 eastbound. That's going to be over at the Wilson Boulevard exit. That is exit 71. We also have one on Long Green Parkway at Longtown Road, one at Shady Grove Road at Julius Richardson Road, and one on Sumter Street at Elmwood Avenue. In Lexington County, we have a few accidents as well, one on Ramblin' Road at South Carolina 602 and Platte Springs Road, as well as one on Kitty Drive at US 1 and Augusta Road.
Time to talk a little more college baseball on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. It's the Postgame Show. Headlines of the day coming up for you in just a bit. Got a few interesting things to talk about around the conference and the country. Also want to remind you that tonight at 6:45, it's Carolina baseball against, 6:15 is the pre. Is that right, Elijah? 6:15 is what I have on this sheet?
That would be, 6:15. I was looking at Friday. Yes, Friday, 6:45
right.
pregame. Tonight, it is 6:15, just a mere minutes after we go off the air.
Okay, there you go. So 6:15 pregame, 6:30 airtime tonight, right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia and across much of the Gamecock Radio Network. And tonight is important because South Carolina would like to host in the NCAA Regionals. And as things stand today, both D1 Baseball and Baseball America have put out some projections. Now, D1 has not yet published this week's full field of 64 projection. Baseball America has. The guys at D1 will have it out shortly. But D1 has put out their top 16. So these are your hosts, according to Kendall Rogers, Mark Etheridge, and our buddy Aaron Fitt. They have Texas A&M at number 1. And again, these are the seedings, not their rankings. Texas A&M 1, Arkansas 2, Clemson 3, Tennessee 4, Kentucky 5, North Carolina 6, Florida State 7, East Carolina 8. So there's your top 8 national seeds. Obviously, they win. They host the Supers. Again, 1 through 8, A&M, Arkansas, Clemson, Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, Florida State, and East Carolina. The second 8 starts at number 9 seed Oregon State, followed by number 10 South Carolina, number 11 Indiana State, number 12 Virginia, 13 Duke, 14 Oklahoma State, 15 Santa Barbara, 16 Oklahoma. So, again, as we speak right now, South Carolina baseball firmly in as a host. You still got to do your part to make that happen. I was listening to some of the podcasts as the guys were debating these things. That is the D1 guys, and they all very complimentary of South Carolina's play of late, even in the series loss to Arkansas, how competitive they were. But a series win at Florida, the series win over Kentucky here in Columbia, scoring a lot of runs for the most part. Terrific strength of schedule. The most quad 1 games played in the country, and 12 of those are victories. They're 12-12 in quad 1, and they've got 6 more to come because you've got games with Georgia and Tennessee still coming. So all of that headed your way soon enough. But tonight, Elijah, these are the games. You know, ETSU comes down here as a pretty good baseball team, but you can't lose these.
No.
You've got to win. These are about as close as I will get to must win. Because you lose them, and it can be an RPI killer.
Well, that's the thing. Nothing kills you in RPI, not just by playing teams that are a little lower in the RPI, but by losing it to them. And look, you're going to have a lot of quad 1 opportunities. I did the math yesterday. You're going to end this regular season with 30 quad 1 games. 30. That's a lot of opportunity. A lot of opportunity that a lot of these teams don't have. You look at your Dallas Baptists, who are projected by Baseball America to be the last, or the
last host,
16
Yep.
seed,
Yep.
As a host, and they are running on even thinner margins. But that's just because they don't have the opportunity you do, which means you have fewer opportunities to really mess your resume up. And while East Tennessee is a solid team, that's actually a top 60 team in RPI. Still, that's going to be one of the lower ones you play, so it will bring you down a little bit. But losing to them at home still is a quad 3 loss because they're 54, which is right outside the top 50. Home games, 51 to 100 are quad 3 games. You don't want to stack quad 3 and 4 losses, and that's one thing this Gamecock team hasn't done. Only 2 of their 14 losses are outside the first 2 quadrants. You'd like to keep it that way because, if you have a similar resume to a lot of other teams that are going to be fighting for that spot, like, Oregon State, who's 33-10, but maybe doesn't have the same, amount of quad 1 games you do, and you're 500 in quad 1. You're looking at, game or like Dallas Baptist too, in terms of another comparable, right? Dallas Baptist is 6-1 in quad 1. They have a higher quad 1 winning percentage, just don't have the raw number of games, but they do a really good job of taking care of everything outside the top 2 quadrants. You don't want to give any ammo to be used against you when it comes to this selection process. We already established the SEC is going to get a ton of teams hosting regionals. They're going to try to find ways to get teams like Dallas Baptist, like Indiana State, teams that maybe didn't play the same schedule or are in a conference of the same caliber, in there because they can't have it all just be SEC and ACC teams. It's a bad look, and you represent too many conferences for there to be not enough of, I guess, a variety of conferences representing as hosts. Don't give them the fuel to be able to ultimately make you one of the odd teams out.
And that's why I was telling you yesterday, like you're going to get a Big 12 team. I mean, unless the Big 12 just continues to just beat each other up so badly that one can't stand out from another.
Cannibalism.
Then you're going to get a big, because the Big 12 plays good baseball. There's really good baseball in the Big 12. So you're going to get, and right now, again, these guys don't, but actually, no, this is the one that does. So say D1 has 2 with Oklahoma State at 14 and Oklahoma at 16. Obviously next year Oklahoma changes things up just a little bit. Meanwhile, Baseball America has their full field projections out. And I'm not going to go through all 64 of these schools, y'all, but I'll give you the top 16. They also have A&M, Arkansas, Clemson 1, 2, 3. North Carolina, they have 4th. Tennessee 5th. Florida State 6, Kentucky 7, and East Carolina 8. So, again, it's the same schools in that top 8, just in a different order. At 9, they also have Oregon State. But at 10, they have Oklahoma State, 11, Virginia, 12, South Carolina, 13, Indiana State, 14, UC Irvine. So they like Irvine at Baseball America more than Santa Barbara. Duke 15, Dallas Baptist 16. So a couple of differences in that second 8. The South Carolina regional here in Columbia would have the Gamecocks starting off with 4th seed Samford, according to their projection, with Wake Forest as the 2 and College of Charleston as the 3. So Coach Holbrook's team could potentially make their way back to Columbia. We'll see. For the Clemson regional, they've got the Tigers going up against 4th seed Jacksonville with San Diego and Troy as the 2 and 3 seeds. So the Columbia Regional, in my opinion, if Wake Forest is the 2 and Charleston is the 3,
tough.
That's, is it significantly harder? I don't know, but it's tougher.
Yeah.
It's absolutely tougher. And Troy, for what it's worth, though, for Clemson folks to know, Troy went to Conway not this past weekend, but the weekend before, and swept Coastal.
And a couple of games looking really impressive.
They're good. So
large margins.
Yeah. And, listen, San Diego, I can't tell you I know a lot about them. I will just say that San Diego and San Diego State, let's face it, man, it's SoCal, right?
They play good baseball.
They just got baseball players, man. They got year-round weather, and they produce baseball players. I mean, from L.A. down to San Diego and all points in between, they produce baseball players.
Insert any Big West school in there. That's it. They probably play pretty good baseball.
Yeah.
For a mid-major conference, they play really good baseball.
Yeah.
And the thing with Wake Forest, too, I definitely peep the schedule. And that's, as of right now, potentially projected to be in South Carolina's region. But they do have a 3-game series against Clemson. So that could either make or break their resume a little bit. That's how good this Wake Forest team is. Like, say they sweep Clemson at home. It's at home, so it's possible. They sweep or take 2 or 3. We're talking about them maybe hosting themselves.
Yes.
that would be a not so favorable draw.
Well, I said last time we talked about this, and I'll say it again. These are obviously all very fluid. I feel strongly that A&M and Arkansas are going to keep winning enough in the Southeastern Conference to hold on. I would say the same thing for Tennessee. Gamecocks get a shot at the Vols in Knoxville in a couple of weeks. But there's movement here. But I'm with you. Wake Forest, absolutely. I think of these schools that are either in or right near it, they've got an opportunity. Mm-hmm. They do. They have an opportunity. And even if you didn't beat Clemson this weekend, but say you went in a couple of weeks and won the ACC tournament, I think that would also do enough for you because the ACC is strong.
And that's how close they are.
Yeah, it's very strong. And again, for the Gamecocks, you go 5-4 again in these final 9, win your 2 midweeks. I think you're hosting. We shall see. Elijah's got a poll question for you on the other side of the break. It is the Postgame Show. 11 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Wednesday. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Before I toss it to Elijah for the poll question, I want to thank Philip for hitting us on the Firehouse Subs text line. Says, listening to your Tower of Terror story is great, although my 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old, he says, 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old, rode Tower of Terror back in February and loved it. Yeah.
Would not have been me at that age. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't know. At 4, I can't tell you what I would or would not have done. I rode it.
Scared of my own shadow at that age.
I forget. I guess I was probably close to 30 when that ride opened, or at least when I first rode it. Because, again, that park hadn't been around that long. 35 years ago when it opened, although I did not go when it opened, I was, 18?
Huh.
So, you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, I rode it when I was 16. When I was 16, I was nervous about it, and I had fun.
Yeah.
But there was some anxiety building up because I knew exactly what was going to happen. I have not ridden it before, but I knew what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I knew what I was getting into.
Yeah.
Still a little nervous.
If you missed the story, and I won't tell it again, but my very good friend and longtime co-host, Michael Haney, got confused as to what he thought we were in line for.
His memory failed him miserably.
He thought we were in line. Those of you who have been and have done both at Disney World, he thought we were in line for Haunted Mansion, which is at another park in Florida, but, a couple miles away. But he thought, which goes like 2 miles an hour and is, again, a kooky haunted house. It's
more of like a little tour of this little.
It's not a, 15-story drop in the dark.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Dramatically different.
A little bit. Poll question for today, sir.
So the poll question for today, this time of year, which of these are you the most invested in? The NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, MLB regular season, or binging TV shows? Now, I made those the options because obviously South Carolina baseball is going on right now, but I'm curious to see exactly what maybe the secondary interest is, right? And as of right now, 36% say binging TV shows, 31% say the Major League Baseball regular season, 23% say NBA playoffs, and we have 9.2% saying Stanley Cup playoffs, which is 9% more than what I expected, and I'm proud of that 9%. It's a niche crowd. But we also have some comments. My man Michael Ruiz on Twitter says all the soccer, MLS, EPL, and Champions League, plus Copa America, Euros, and Olympics, all happening this summer. That's a really, really good point. I'm also going to be invested in a lot of that. We have one comment from @ready_Jimmy says MLS and Super Rugby. I would like to know what the difference between rugby and Super Rugby is. Rugby had, piqued my curiosity. Super Rugby has piqued my interest.
Well, if we need anything to do with rugby, our very good friend Brad Muller will let you know.
Rugby legend, Brad Muller.
He knows what's up.
Gamecock rugby legend.
That's right.
Brad Muller.
That's right.
And then we have one that says golf, which I get to. I am very interested in the British Open every year. Now just the Open. Uh-huh. I still refer to it as the British Open. Always will.
Well, we got a PGA championship before that.
And a PGA championship before that.
Yeah.
Which I'm not as interested in, but always interested. It's a major tournament, so I have a little bit of a investment in it. And then
I was watching the end of the Zurich, the playoff open, or the New Orleans. They had a playoff at the end. It was great team event.
Locked in.
Yeah, it was fun, man.
And then
I didn't know the other two dudes, but Lowry and Rory ended up winning. So.
Which is fun. So just trying to get a nice gauge of what everybody's the most interested in outside of, obviously, this Gamecock baseball push to the postseason. I was genuinely curious about the market and people that listen to the shows and follow us online, what they're the most interested in. I
already watch plenty of soccer, so I'm not really readjusting things now this time of year once basketball's done. And I watch the Braves a lot, so I'm invested in that. But I would probably, right now, I'd probably go with your results in that order because my wife and I have been watching some things and we're trying to start a couple of new ones.
It's time to catch up.
We just finished, actually, just a couple days ago. We finished Shogun on Hulu.
Interesting.
Those of you who are old enough might remember Shogun as a miniseries like in the early 80s. Same story, the James Clavell novel, just modernized. I liked it.
Nice.
10 episodes. So
I love a good miniseries.
Took a
I'm
while.
a sucker for a miniseries.
Before that, we watched Death and Other Details with Mandy Patinkin as sort of a modern-day Hercule Poirot type detective. It was pretty good. I forget the girl's name that was the star. Violet something, I think. I didn't know her. Some people, I think my daughters knew. She was in something they knew. I got to be honest, I didn't. She was good. It was good. I like murder mysteries, too.
Murder mysteries are fun. Very fun.
I don't know what's next. I think my wife has a couple of ideas.
Well, now's a good time to do it. Or once the college
I kind of
baseball
want to
season,
rewatch
especially.
The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which was absolutely fantastic.
I've heard it's awesome.
Oh, my gosh.
Have not checked it out.
Dude, it's like Broadway on television with amazing one-liner comedy. It is so good. It is so funny.
That'll be hit or miss for me.
It is
That'll
so
be very hit or miss.
Headlines of the day. More on Carolina baseball and the drive around the SEC. That's all coming at you in the final hour of the postgame show.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to report to you that are causing some delays on the roadways here in town. We'll go ahead and start with one in Richland County. Over near Irmo, it looks like, on Shady Grove Road at Julius Richardson Road. That accident's causing a little bit of traffic backup. We have some good news here in Richland County, and that is that an accident has been cleared. That's the one that was on I-20 eastbound over at Wilson Boulevard near exit 71. So traffic's moving much more smoothly through that area. And in Lexington County, we still have 2 accidents that are causing some issues. One at Ramblin' Road at South Carolina 602 near Platte Springs Road, and one on Kittiwake Drive at US 1 at Augusta Road.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. Final hour of the postgame show as well. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. We start with Carolina baseball. 6:30 first pitch tonight against East Tennessee State. Derek Scott and Stuart Lake on the call at 6:15 here across the Gamecock Radio Network. The Bucks come in here as a pretty good baseball team, Elijah. 27-14 overall. They are 9-6 in the SoCon. As you mentioned earlier, they have an RPI just outside the top 50 at number 52. And they just swept the Citadel this past weekend, winning those games by a combined score of 32-11. In the series, Carolina has won all 8 of these, including a 3-game sweep the last time they played, I guess, back in 2002. Wow. Jerome Peters, who was a hero that year when Carolina went to the College World Series, had 4 hits in that one. Tonight's pitching matchup looks like this for ETSU. Kason Engert, a freshman righty. He's just 0-1 with an 8.59 and 14 2/3 pitched.
A little high.
18 walks, or excuse me, 18 strikeouts. Sorry. 18 strikeouts, 4 walks. Jake McCoy, the freshman lefty, goes for the Gamecocks. No record as of this point. A 7.04 ERA in just 7 2/3, 10 strikeouts, and 7 walks. I would imagine that both of these teams will be throwing a lot of arms tonight. Don't know what to expect score-wise. I expect South Carolina to win the baseball game. And we'll see if Mark Kingston wants to stick with the lineup that was very successful in scoring 23 combined runs in the final 2 games against Kentucky. I think he will.
I think so, too. I think we'll see it. And if that's the case, I can expect a lot of Gamecock runs.
It allows, as he told you and me, and I know he's told others, but as he told you and me on Monday, he and the coaching staff understood that they were going to sacrifice some level of defense for the offensive lineup that they knew they needed to put in. You know, you're moving Casas and Petrie around, you're moving Talmadge over. But then you and I yesterday spoke with Derek Scott, and we asked Derek, hey, what did you see defensively? And I asked him things like, does this guy have range? Can this guy make the throws? Some, kind of generic questions. And he said, I thought maybe going in that we might, but it really didn't. Doesn't mean you won't, but, look, these are high-level baseball players, and as Mark told us too, some of these guys have done this. I mean, they do work them at other spots. I mean, you got to have backups, and a lot of times your backups at one spot are starters at another. So, this is not uncommon, but I think this gives everything just a little more chance to solidify. Because again, you need to win tonight. There's zero doubt of that, but you need to win this series this weekend.
Absolutely. And, some of those players that were at different spots, like Ethan Petrie looks pretty good at first base. Made a couple plays the other day in the Kentucky series that I was genuinely like, oh, it's a good snag. Mm-hmm. I forget you're a right fielder. Mm-hmm. Or I forget that's where you spend most of the time. Mm-hmm. And I know Gavin Casas had a ball, grounded to him, and he wasn't able to throw out the runner. But look, he made a decent play on the ball, and it would have been a tough throw regardless. I don't think that they're minuses at the spots where they're at to the point where it would really matter that much. I feel like this is the way to go. And if the Philadelphia Phillies taught you anything, sometimes it's something you can sacrifice, and over the course of a 9-inning game, barring too many mistakes, it shouldn't be that big of a difference. I think this is probably the way to go at this point in the season.
Yeah,
to optimize those bats.
It is, and then with the one caveat being when Will Tippett is ready to come back, because again, there's the real just. Yeah, I don't want to go so far as to say the tragic part of that, because it's not like his season is over, but just when he gets his back going.
Unfortunate.
You know, he gets double whammied with a concussion and a knee sprain. Mark did tell us on Monday, if you missed it, the concussion he's basically cleared from and has begun to take a little bit of infield with a knee brace on. And at that point, you know, Coach Kingston was not ready to commit to whether or not Will would even travel with the team this weekend. We might learn more from him tonight about that, or at least in postgame before they leave tomorrow. I would imagine tonight in postgame he will absolutely be asked about Tippett's condition and status. But, you know, you probably aren't going to see him in Como this weekend. But maybe he's back and ready to go. But and then look, then it gets weird, right? Like, all right, well, do I shift everything back around again if it's working really well? You know, sometimes baseball coaches get superstitious. Sometimes every coach gets superstitious. I don't care what sport it is.
No.
Yeah, not a little stitious. So we'll see. But anyway, first things first tonight, 6:30. The Gamecocks at 29-14. And just a little bit, for those of you who may have missed it, we've done it a couple of times, but I know it's newsworthy today. Elijah and I will go over the latest projections for the NCAA tournament and where things stand at this point in time. Continuing our integrated media headlines of the day, speaking of baseball, the millions of dollars stolen from superstar Shohei Ohtani were funneled to an illegal bookmaker in California through several Las Vegas casinos, according to sources that talked to Tisha Thompson of ESPN. She writes that the money was deposited in gambling accounts, converted to playing chips, and later cashed out to pay the bookie. Man, this is a Scorsese film.
It's pretty elaborate.
Let me read verbatim here. The description of what happened to Ohtani's money sheds new light on the ongoing federal probe that drew global attention after his interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara, was accused of stealing $16 million from the Dodgers slugger to feed what he has called a gambling addiction. You think?
That's putting it mildly.
$16 million. The bookmaker, Matthew Boyer, was a frequent customer at Resorts World in Vegas. Come on, man. You know what that sounds like?
Made up.
It sounds like where you go to buy like secondhand sheets from like resorts, like with logos on them, or like coffee mugs.
Discounted stuff, Resorts World.
Like the T-shirts that, you know, they didn't sew correctly at the factory.
Towels in bulk that maybe have the logo embroidered on them wrong.
Yeah, you know, that's where
Resorts
World.
World.
Where'd you get your towels?
I got like 40 of them at Resorts
World. And I love that coffee
$5.
mug. It's great. But why is Caesar spelled like with a Z? I don't know.
I miss Brent.
What are you gonna do?
Wouldn't be cheap if it wasn't that way.
I'm telling you. Just seeing some guy on a cable commercial. Come on down to Resorts World. I guess that's why they got caught, man, because it's not the best casino.
You never get caught because you're doing something, you know, I guess expected. It's usually like, or someone doing something really dumb.
It's like the casino in Vegas Vacation where they're playing like, you know, rock, paper, scissors and war and whatnot.
Go fish.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Resorts World. You'll love it.
It's real. It's a real
That's right.
place.
It's a real place. Just trust us.
If we were playing, you know, real casino or fake casino, I would have guessed fake casino.
The sources tell ESPN that Mr. Mizuhara paid his losses to an associate of Mr. Boyer, who then forwarded the money to his own accounts at Resorts World and the Pachanga Resort and Casino in Southern California. They then withdrew chips from the marker account, gambled with them, and if they won, they cashed out. I don't know if they're any good or not. So anyway, what a scheme. I need me a Resorts World T-shirt or robe now.
You could buy discounted because something smelled wrong.
Resorts World. I mean, I got to wonder if Resorts World's going to be in business much longer, man.
Or maybe they skyrocket in business because, you can, use it
Maybe.
for certain things.
Speaking of Shohei Ohtani,
They weren't successful.
Yeah, to turn a little more serious, his former teammate Mike Trout has a torn meniscus and will need surgery. The Angels have not announced a timeline for the recovery period. The best case scenario is 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, thank God this isn't something that's awful. Meniscus is a little bit different. Sometimes people even play through the pain of a torn meniscus until the end of a season, but considering this is still, well, I guess it's happened in April, but as April turns to May, this article says that the surgery on Mike Trout could happen as soon as Friday. I was talking with Terry earlier, and I love baseball, and I'm serious when I say this, y'all. I wonder if Mike Trout is the best player, I won't say like ever in sports, but what I mean is he the best player in North American sport that no one's ever heard of? I mean, there's plenty of maybe hockey dudes, but people have heard of, Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby and people like that. Now, mainly because they played for a high-profile team and they won championships and things like that. Mike Trout's won 3 MVPs, man. He's absolutely the best player that baseball has had since he's been playing baseball. Nobody knows who he is. I mean, people like Mike Trout,
the most anonymous star.
Yeah,
maybe.
but if he played for the Dodgers, if he played for the Giants,
played any baseball in the month of October.
I mean
any whatsoever.
But it's just kind of sad, and Terry and I were talking earlier. It's hard to. And I don't mean this like towards Trout. He's done his thing. And it's hard to feel like too much sympathy for a man who's made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And he's done it by choice. He could have left. He could be playing somewhere else. He's loyal to the Angels, who gave him a chance and all that, But it's just tough to see. That's all. But he was a little choked up yesterday. Yeah. So, here's hoping that he gets back. And, you know what? Artie Moreno, trade him. Somebody take him off your hand. Go to the Giants. Go to, I don't know, Cubs, something.
I mean, here's the worst part about those trade values kind of dipped in the last couple of years because he's not Mike Trout anymore.
Right.
I think that you had about a 5-6 year stretch where he's easily the best player in baseball. Even a couple of years he didn't win MVP. He had a couple of injury-shortened seasons that still statistically were comparable to anybody in the entire league. I just don't know if you have that with him anymore. Like, the haul you're going to get for him is significantly less than what it would have been 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you're the Angels, I mean, you don't have the foresight to know that you're going to completely ruin the window you have with this guy by not investing in any good pitching or maybe other good players that's not Shohei Ohtani. And that one you kind of lucked out in. Now is, maybe the unfortunate thing. Now is the time you hoard him, I guess. But it'd be nice to see him play meaningful baseball for one point in his career.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, if the best case scenario is 4 to 6 weeks, and it's maybe more likely that he's back at the All-Star break, or right before that, something like that. Finally, in our integrated media headlines of the day, control of the Miami Dolphins is reportedly not for sale after USA Today had said that the Dolphins owner, Stephen Ross, had turned down a total $10 billion offer for control of the Dolphins, plus the Formula One Miami Grand Prix that he owns, and Hard Rock Stadium, the old Joe Robbie Stadium, which he also owns. USA Today said that he entertained the offer that would have been the largest team sale in U.S. history, turned it down in order to keep the Dolphins in the family. His daughter, Jennifer, became his successor a couple of seasons ago. Hard Rock Stadium hosts all kinds of big events. It's obviously got great weather, and he's done a lot of other things down there. He's not been the greatest NFL owner, and again, ironically, when he was punished for the whole coaching situation a couple of years ago and was forced to step away, is when the Miami Dolphins finally got good again because he couldn't medal.
Coincidence?
Look at what happened.
I think not.
Yeah, so there you go. But Dolphins not per se. That would have been a lot of money, $10 billion.
I don't have it.
I got like 8.
I got like $8. You think they'll let me get on a payment plan for it?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, I can submit the bid. The worst they can do is say no.
Yeah, exactly. What is it? You don't make any of the shots. How are this saying?
Well, it's like Kentucky being like, we're gonna make Dan Hurley say no. Well, he'll say no pretty quickly. Yeah, I'm gonna make them say no with my $8 bid.
You miss all the shots you don't take. Something
That's
like
right.
that. Whatever it is.
That is fact.
And real quick note, the Braves lead the Seattle Mariners 5-0, bottom of the fifth out in Seattle. The Braves have lost the first two games 2-1 and 3-2. That's our integrated media headlines of today. 803-948-8327 for all of your home entertainment, home security needs, and so much more. Call my good friends at Integrated Media. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. Baseball projections for the NCAAs coming up. Get you ready for the Gamecocks and the ETSU Buccaneers here in just a second. Welcome back into the postgame show. Speaking of the baseball game tonight, remind you, go to 1075thegame.com, register for the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. Palmetto Citizens is adding $25 to the pot every game. And if a Carolina hitter hits a grand slam, you could win all that cash. But you can't win if you do not enter. So go to 1075thegame.com, look for the Palmetto Citizens logo, Grand Slam giveaway. As Terry Ford says, the spinny thing. Click it, and away you go. And right now, by the way, with tonight's game, if my math is correct, the pot will be at $1,100.
A lot of money.
Payable in nickels.
Can buy a lot of Taco Bell with that.
Yep, a lot. A whole lot.
Waffle House, too, which if you live in your College Station, I'm sorry, but that's going to be a little over an hour drive for you.
Yeah, if you missed that yesterday, South Carolina leads the Southeastern Conference in proximity football stadium to Waffle House at just 0.2 miles.
You can pogo stick from Williams-Brice to a Waffle House.
The top three all very close. Bryant-Denny, 0.4 miles. Sanford Stadium in Athens, 0.6 miles. And again, I was telling you, Nashville is 3-point-something miles to the nearest one from Vandy, and then more than 5 miles to the nearest Waffle House in Knoxville.
Yeah, there's a lot around Neyland Stadium that's not like chain restaurants or whatever. It's a part of town that hadn't changed a lot. It's all campus too, mostly.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, no, I've been. It's again, it's not my favorite stadium for all. I've said before, my buddies are like, "Oh, you got to come, you got to come." And this is back in the '90s, and I was like, "Okay." And I got there, and let me tell you, man, for the build up and the level of whelming that was there, it was way under.
Well, it's not built for comfort.
I don't know what it's built for, other than
hostility.
Getting there and hoping that you can get out. And I remember saying, man, because I was used to
parking's miserable too.
Well, yeah, but like I'm used to wide concourses, and they don't have that at Neyland. And I did. I remember saying, like, where we were sitting, I was like, I had to walk over just like erector set like walkway to get to where I was sitting, anyways, right? And I was like, man, if something happens here, nobody's getting out.
Oh no, it's not built safely for that. That's why the best joke, whenever Philip Fulmer was hitting the hard years, was that he was suspected a FEMA worker because no one's evacuated Neyland Stadium that fast ever after a few of those games.
It's good.
Yeah, that was the running joke in like 2005 when they went 5-6. It was a good one.
Would there ever be the entertaining of a new football stadium in Knoxville?
You want my EFPI index to that?
Yes.
Negative 70%.
Yeah.
Never, ever. They would never.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, but man, not.
It's too beloved there. They'll never entertain it.
I get it.
They might put in more fancy luxury boxes. That's about it.
Where?
I'll find somewhere.
Man, you should be way up there looking at it. I hope you can get out of that.
Not safely.
Magnification windows or something. Anyway, a couple of Gamecock things to get to. First off, congratulations to Caitlin Anderson. She has won her 4th SEC Coach of the Year award, Carolina Women's Golf Coach. They're in the tournament. Bill McDonald's team is in the tournament as well. So congratulations to Coach, one of our favorites. They'll be in the Baton Rouge Regional, the program's 30th all-time. And for Bill, I think this will be 15 or 16 since he's been here. I think this is his 17th year. They pretty much always go.
Automatic.
And they had listen, man, their best player got hurt in that car accident. And somebody hit the team bus, and it was he's going to be fine ultimately, but it just put a real in-season damper on what you were doing when you're number one. When you send your number one out, and then that dude's got a fractured elbow,
Yeah.
Just very unfortunate.
But the season turned around a little bit after he made his appearance on our show. So I'm not saying that we should get credit for it, but I'm saying we should probably get a little credit.
No, I'm absolutely saying that. And speaking of golf, I guess I can't say congratulations because they didn't win, but Shane Beamer and former head coach Houston Nutt finished second to FSU head coach Mike Norvell and former Florida coach Urban Meyer in the Southern Company's Peach Bowl Challenge presented by Chick-fil-A. They went to a 4-hole playoff, man.
That's intense.
A 4-hole playoff. People have said, because I first met Shane playing golf, and I was like, y'all, Shane's good. And they're like, how good? I was like, nah, he's good.
He can play.
You know,
he tried to downplay it when he was on.
Yeah,
with us.
he does.
He tried to downplay it.
He does. He does.
I gave him the opportunity to brag on himself. He just didn't take it.
He's good. I've seen it. I'm like, it's a whole different level of good. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't need to be out here doing it. I get uncomfortable playing with people that are that good because I feel like I'm holding them back, and most of them don't care.
Right.
You know, but I do. Like, I feel
like
a consciousness.
Nuisance?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Mine's like, oh, I can't find that ball. You know, don't worry about it. I got more. I'm just going to throw it in the fairway.
You know,
I'll hit mine where yours is.
You know, yeah.
And I won't keep score.
And they're not just carrying you, you know. I mean, they're carrying everything. So, anyway, but that's pretty cool. 4-hole playoff. And it's funny that they had FSU and UF people together. But it worked.
It was a good tandem.
And all the money goes to charity, so don't worry about anything else. Real quick, do I have time for this?
Yeah, good time.
Okay. South Carolina is projected as the number 10 seed in the D1 baseball, NCAA baseball tournament projections. They are projected as the 12 seed by Baseball America. Clemson is third in both. Only Baseball America, as we speak, has put out their full 64-school projection. Carolina would host 2-seed Wake Forest, 3-seed Charleston, and open with 4-seed Samford out of Birmingham, while Clemson would host 2-seed San Diego, 3-seed Troy, and open with 4-seed Jacksonville. A&M and Arkansas are 1-2, Clemson 3, North Carolina 4, Tennessee 5, FSU 6, Kentucky 7, East Carolina 8. In the Baseball America projections, again, Oregon State 9, Oklahoma State 10, UVA 11, Carolina 12, Indiana State 13, Irvine 14, Duke 15, Dallas Baptist 16. Still lots of season left to play, so expect some change. And Elijah and I have been talking a lot today. You got Wake Forest coming to Columbia in this projection, along with Coach Holbrook's team coming up from Charleston. Wake Forest is still in excellent position to host. Excellent position.
An opportunity against Clemson next weekend.
Yeah, in fact, I kind of think they're gonna get one. And what I mean by that is I think they'll play well enough to earn one.
Yeah,
I really do. I really do. All right, come back on the other side. Drive around the SEC. Baseball results from last night. A couple of more basketball transfers to tell you about as well. And we will update you, speaking of transfers, to football transfers into Shane Beamer's program. You are listening to the Postgame Show.
Talking a lot about playoff action, basketball, hockey, all of that. And you can get in on all this action and enjoy it a whole lot more with our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the #1 fantasy sports app. It is my favorite fantasy sports app. And all you got to do, pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. Watch those winnings roll in. You also have injury insurance, which guarantees that, you know, the play gets voided if a player gets hurt in the first half and does not return for the second. They also offer weekly promotions and special offers for the biggest moments in sports, and they offer Apple Pay and a quick and easy deposit into your account. Tonight, I am very big on the more option on Luka Doncic, 33.5 points against the Clippers, because the Clippers are going to Clipper. Promise that. All you got to do, download the app today, and you can play too. Use 1075 Game for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's 1075 Game on Prize Picks. From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We'll start here in Richland County. Accident on I-26 eastbound at the Columbia Avenue exit 91, causing a little bit of an issue. We also have one on I-26 westbound near Irmo. This is at the Broad River Road exit 101. We also have a couple others here in Richland County, one on Polo Road at Two Notch Road, one on Shady Grove Road at Julius Richardson Road. That one's caused an issue for about an hour now. One on Shop Road at Atlas Road, as well as one on US 176 and Broad River Road near I-26. In Lexington County, we have a couple, one on St. Andrews Road at Bush River Road and one on Kittiwake Drive at US 1 and Augusta Road.
It is Drive Around the SEC time on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. We'll start with a little Gamecock football news for you. We've been telling you for a while that Shane Beamer, Dowell Loggins, Mike Furry have been looking for more bodies in the wide receiver core, and they have gotten two this week. We told you about one yesterday. I'll come back around to him. But today, South Carolina got a commitment from Nevada wide receiver Dale Von Campbell. This is a young man who is from Texas, started his collegiate career at Illinois, transferred to Nevada, where last season he led the team in receiving yardage with just under 600 on 31 catches. He's also the big body that they were looking for. Depending on where you look, I've got him rated listed anywhere. He's 6'4" for sure, anywhere between 200 and 218 pounds. The article about him transferring out today has him listed at 218 pounds, but his profile page says 200. You know what? I'll meet him in the middle and say 209. Regardless, the jump ball guy, the big body, again, the guy who can body up and be able to go get that ball. They needed that. They've got that body, they've got that type, and they've got, some good production. As I said to you earlier, ask me again in October how he's doing.
They at least got a guy who was utilized in a role that South Carolina needs to utilize one of their wide receivers.
And you had some of the numbers, like basically.
His average depth of target was 19.9 yards. Yeah. So we round that up, a tenth of a yard. Almost the average pass to him traveled 20 yards in the air. So when they threw him the ball, on average, it was down the field pretty well. And he was still able to catch over 50% of those targets. And he's not a big yard after catch guy, only averaged about 4 yards after the catch. But in terms of a target that you can use to maybe stretch the defense a little bit, which defenses have to be able to respect, or else they're just going to load up the box on you.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a hard time moving the ball, regardless of how talented your slot receivers and your running backs are and your offensive line is. If they know you're not going to be able to go down the field, teams can prepare for you a whole lot easier. You need somebody like that can at least make defenses respect that option of your offense. This guy is something that, he is going to be brought here to do that because you need somebody who can do that.
And you said of those catches, in terms of the percentage of targets, 31 catches, but only two statistical drops. So he'll catch the football.
Only accounted for 2 drops of the 57 targets. He caught 31 of those 57 targets. That's about 54.4% if PFF's math is correct. I'll trust them. I think they've invested some calculators.
They know what's up.
And with only 2 drops, that should tell you that, maybe the issue on some of those incomplete passes were that they're low percentage throws because they're further down the field.
Right. So there you go. The other one, if you missed it yesterday, Florida State receiver Vandrevius Jacobs, who is he's from Florida, committed to South Carolina. He had just 3 catches last season for FSU, one of them for a touchdown. He was rated, according to what Wes Mitchell says, as the number 31 receiver in the portal, in this spring portal. So that's 5 wide receivers South Carolina has added through the portal between the end of the season and this spring portal. 1 tight end, 3 running backs, and 2 quarterbacks, amongst others, on the offense. So a lot of work done to the Gamecock offense through the portal this offseason.
To say it's a new-look offense would be the understatement of the spring.
Yeah. So, again, as I mentioned to the audience earlier, and I will say again to those of you listening now, ask me again in October. It's just all I can tell you. I don't know. They like them. They went and got, in some cases, it might be best available. Again, you're looking at need and filling that need. Like I said, you needed a jump ball guy. Well, you got a dude who's 6'4" and weighs more than 200 pounds. So you got that. How is he going to play in the Southeastern Conference? Doing the shoulder thing.
We'll see.
Don't know.
We're going to find out.
We will, but it'll be a while. Continuing the drive around the SEC, baseball last night. There we go. Thank you very much. Last night, Florida over Florida Atlantic in a pretty good slugfest, 10-8. Tennessee got upset last night by Lipscomb.
That's right.
9-6.
Small school in Nashville.
Did somebody owe Lipscomb a favor, or Tennessee just decided they didn't want to play last night?
Maybe they lost that game out of the respect of the Church of Christ, which is the affiliation of Lipscomb.
Could be. Georgia goes to Kennesaw State right up the road and wins 9-3. A&M over Tarleton State 10-6. Vandy edges out Tennessee Tech 8-7 in 11 innings. If I may, where is Tennessee Tech?
That is in Cookeville, Tennessee. That's where I went to high school.
Okay.
And I went to Tennessee Tech for 2 semesters.
All right.
Do not ask how I did in those 2 semesters.
Okay.
I can't think back that far.
All good to know. Missouri takes care of Lindenwood, which, again, we discovered yesterday is not a golf course or nice resort in the Ozarks. 13-1 the final score, but Lindenwood is, as Elijah told us, now in the Ohio Valley Conference.
That is. St. Charles, Missouri.
LSU run-ruled Grambling last night.
Rude.
You see the score?
I did not see the score.
26-2.
Close game.
They scored 13
Nail-biter.
runs in the 4th. Ouch.
That should have been the end of the game right there.
Ouch.
You got to call it. We need an addition to the run rule where if you score 10-plus runs in 1 inning and the other team has yet to score, they get 1 half inning to try to get up half that deficit.
Or if you're up by 20.
Because it's 10 runs by the 7th inning?
Yeah.
If it's 20 by the 4th.
Yeah, and it was.
It's over.
If actually, at the end of the 4th, it was 22-0. And then Grambling scored 2 in the 5th. And LSU scored 4 in the 5th. And then they still had to play 2 more innings where nobody scored. At that point, both coaches might have said, just swing regardless.
We're just bunting.
13, and I feel bad for Grambling.
Terrible, yeah. Not a fun way to spend a night.
Arkansas beats Missouri State 12-7. They are playing again tonight. No score in the 3rd. Carolina, of course, has ETSU. And tonight, and this is I think they call it the Governor's Cup. Mississippi State and Ole Miss do actually every year play a game in Jackson, officially Pearl, where the Braves play, the AA Braves. Yep. But I think they call it the Governor's Cup. So they do play every year a non-con game as well.
Been to that stadium. Nice little stadium.
Yeah. See,
not much in Pearl, Mississippi, but
right.
it's a nice little stadium.
That's cool. Well, AA Braves, man. I mean, I imagine they pack them in.
The game that I remember going to, it was pretty packed. Saw Bryce Elder throw 8 no-hit innings.
That's cool.
And they threw a combined no-no.
Basketball. Former Clemson forward R.J. Godfrey has committed to Georgia. He made visits to UGA and Auburn this week. That's a solid get. Mike White through the portal is getting better.
He is. I mean, he's got 2 top 50 recruits coming in this year, and one of those recruits, Asa Newell, is a top 15 recruit in the country. Got Dakota LaFew from Mount St. Mary's, who was a South Carolina target at point. I really loved watching his film. Solid player. And they added a player from Appalachian State who got really good playing time. So they've shaped up pretty well in the portal so far.
Godfrey is from Georgia, scored about 6 points and had 4 boards per game, but was a solid player for Clemson. Can play defense too.
Really good role player.
Yeah.
Really good role player who can play a couple of those positions down there on the front court.
Yeah, and I think when you look at him, he's going to play Southeastern Conference basketball.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to average Georgia double-double, but he's going to be a guy that's going to be a pain in the rear for a lot of SEC teams to play against because he's a tough kid, good defender, good rebounder, plays well within a system. I think he's going to fit in at Georgia pretty well considering some of the other names they brought in.
And finally, Kobe Bray of Dayton has transferred to Kentucky, choosing the Wildcats over Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and Connecticut.
He's pretty good.
Dang.
Yeah, he was one of the best kept secrets in college basketball because, Deron Holmes was Dayton's
That's the
big
top
name.
5 list, dude.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All blue bloods.
It's just the top 5 list, period.
Blue bloods only. Like, Deron Holmes got all the love at Dayton, rightfully so, because it's a guy, that's an NBA player right there. But Kobe Brea was a 49.8% three-point shooter. He was almost a 50% three-point shooter on 201 attempts. He is a sniper. Oh, and they picked up Kerr Kriisa from the transfer portal, too, from West Virginia. You might know him as the kid from Arizona. Transferred to go play for Bob Huggins, but Bob Huggins may or may not have gotten a little bit of legal trouble.
A little bit.
So no longer the head coach for the Mountaineers, but Kerr Kriisa played there last year and shot over 42% from three. So they're getting a 42% three-point shooter in Kerr Kriisa, and almost 50% three-point shooter in Kobe Brea. And Mark Pope coached one of the 4 teams in college basketball that shot more threes than twos.
Ooh.
I think I have a good clue of what Kentucky's going to want to do a lot next year. I got an idea. Just a hunch.
Yeah.
Just a hunch.
Yeah.
But they're probably going to be chucking that thing a lot.
How many kids have ever had like their final 5 list be those 5? I mean, I imagine there's a couple, but I mean, that's strong.
That just shows you how highly coveted of a prospect he was coming out of Dayton.
That's almost like, wait, really? But yeah. That's the drive around the SEC, brought to you by Herndon Chevrolet in Lexington. You can save $20,000 on new Silverados. Get out to Herndon, and together, let's drive. I'm being quizzed again. I did so wonderfully yesterday. Not. That Elijah has another quiz for me coming up as the postgame show continues. All right, welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show on this Wednesday. A reminder, Carolina baseball coming your way at 6:15, a little bit earlier midweek start time tonight. 6:15 with a 6:30 first pitch. Derek Scott and Stuart Lake on the call. Also, don't forget to head to 1075thegame.com, hit Sweet Deals, and get yourself a craft beer card. It's back. $30 to spend at 12 different craft beer locations across the Midlands. That's a $360 value. You only have to pay $79 for it. It's a lot of savings for good beer. Sweet Deals, 1075thegame.com.
Good deal.
All right. You want to cue the music again? And
different vibe this
I feel
time.
like I'm in a dunking booth.
Close. This is the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire for those who remember that good show.
that.
You're not going to be a millionaire.
I enjoyed Family Feud yesterday, though. I'm not going to lie to you, man.
That was good. But after, we will do another music bet for Family Feud if you hit at least 50% of these.
Oh, okay. You know what? I like the dating game music, too. The
upbeat stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to earn it.
My favorite game show music, though, is a Match Game.
I don't know if I've heard that.
Just wait till you hear it.
But you know what? If you get 5 out of 6,
70s vibe.
You get 5 out of 6.
Okay.
We'll use that one for the next game. All right. Same as yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm just going to give you a name. You're going to tell me if this is a real NBA player or someone that I made up.
Okay.
Does not exist.
Let me set this up for everybody again. This came about because years ago, Pearson Fowler and I were doing a show when this is when the Raptors were in the playoffs on their way to an NBA title, and I obviously knew who Kawhi Leonard was. And I was like, all right, who's the second best player on the Raptors? And Pearson one day said, Pascal Siakam. And I'm like, you just made that up. That just sounds.
You didn't believe that existed.
And he's like, no. He's French, and he's really good. And I was like, whatever. Just give me, And so then we talked about that yesterday, and you said another name for a guy I can't remember. I was like,
Josh Okogie.
you just made that up.
Georgia Tech legend.
And then I realized that he was actually real, and so here we are.
All right, number 1.
Okay.
Pero Antic.
Say it again.
Pero Antic.
Jeez. Fake.
Incorrect. Pero Antic is a former Macedonian center for the Atlanta Hawks back in the mid-2010s. Played on that team that won 60 games. He is very much real.
Jeez.
Number 2.
All right.
Augustus Salachunas.
Oh, I remember a former player at Carolina named Goalie Augustus. Does that count? He was real.
He was real.
Fake.
There you go. You're on the board. Okay. Augustus Salachunas does not exist.
All right, we're one of two.
Made him up.
We're one of two.
All right. Number 3. Emmanuel Umanora.
I see. I feel like I've heard that name, but then again, yeah, I'm good. Real.
Emmanuel Umanora is not real. Dang. I made that one up. You are getting confused with Osi Umanora, former New York Giants defensive end.
That could be it. Who I would have said. I would have remembered him. All right, I'm one of 3. Oh boy,
you're struggling. All right, number 4, Chuma Okeke.
Yes. That's a real player. That's a real player.
That is a real player.
Yeah. Okay, I actually have heard that name.
Because he played for Auburn.
Okay, yes. Yeah, there you go.
I essentially made this one the free space in the bingo card.
Thank you, yeah.
Number 5.
Okay.
Alexei Pokachevsky.
That one sounds too made up. I'm going to say that's not a real player.
Unfortunately for you, he is real, and he plays for the Charlotte Hornets. Alexei Pokachevsky, drafted by the Thunder, traded to Charlotte. He plays 90 minutes up the road.
Again, see, these are just, I think these are all made-up names. This is the problem the NBA had. There's people I've never heard of, and they all make 8 figures, too.
Pokachevsky might. He might.
What's his name again?
Alexei Pokachevsky.
Wow. All right, so I'm 2 for 5.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, this is your chance to get to 500.
At least back to 500. Well, I was 2 for 6 yesterday, so I mean, hey, again, if it's baseball, I'm in fine shape. All right, last one.
And lastly, Simon Samuels.
That sounds like a detective on like Law and Order. No. Fake.
Well done. You end on a high note. Simon Samuels is absolutely not real. Made that one up. You end 3 for 6.
Hey, it's better than yesterday. I'm getting better.
That's true. That is a 1 point improvement, which means the next game show we do, we'll play more upbeat music.
Okay.
Now tomorrow, I'll go let you pick which one. Do you want to do real for tomorrow? Real or fake NHL player?
Oh God, no.
Or real or fake Steve Spurrier insult?
Well, I'd rather do the Spurrier one because I might actually have a chance there. I couldn't. I mean, NHL, dude. Sorry.
Yeah. So
I like playoff hockey, but I don't know names, man. I don't know names.
And those are some names and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that would be that would likely. I mean, I'd get lucky. Not that I.
That's truly a guessing game.
Not that I use a lot of skill tonight. I'll tell you that much.
To go 50%.
Yeah. When we get into like mascots and things, I'll be able to handle that a little bit better. Good stuff. Thank you. Hey, I got better. I feel good about myself leaving out of this one. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Enjoy baseball. See you.